Hello guys, and welcome to another video. So in this video, what we will do is we're going to look into an example in which we're just going to define a method that takes three numbers, and then this method will return the biggest number among those three. Those numbers could be integers, they could be doubles, they could be whatever data type. So let's actually look into that. So to start, let's just define our method. So it's just going to be public static. Let's assume these three numbers are of type double. So it means because we're going to return 1, that would be double. And then followed by the method name. In this case, you can name it whatever you want. I will name it print double. And this method takes three parameters, all of data types double. So it's just going to be like double num1, double num2, and double num3. So now you guys know the importance of developing an algorithm before you actually write the program. So to save time, let me just paste this algorithm for you guys. And this is pretty much our roadmap for how this is going to work. You could actually write the same program in different ways, and I think there is a good chance you will still get it to work, but I'm just going to show you like basic straightforward way to figure out the maximum number. So what I will do is I'm going to look into these numbers as pairs. So num1, num2, num1, num3, num2, num3, etc. So my algorithm is going to work this way. So we're going to compare the first two numbers, num1, num2. If num1 is greater than num2, it means num2 is not going to be something I'm going to look at anymore. It's just going to be completely dropped. So now I have num1 and num3. One of them is going to be the maximum. So now I'm going to compare num1 and num3. If num1 is greater than num3, it means my biggest is num1, and that's it. Now, what if num1 is not greater than num2? So now essentially it's just going to be completely different. So now if num2 is greater than num1, I need to compare num2 and num3. If num2 is greater than num3, it means that's the biggest. Otherwise, it's num3 is the biggest, so on and so forth. So let's actually implement this. So kind of looking at this, I'm going to compare the two numbers. So if num1 is greater than num2, again, I can't say num1 is biggest because I need to compare num1 and num3 now. So now I will have if num1 is greater than num3, now I can actually say, well, my biggest number is num1. So to make it simple, let me define a variable called biggest. Biggest is just going to be my double. That essentially is just going to be returned because of this method. Remember, this method returns a double. So I'm just going to return, biggest at the end. So now if num1 is greater than num3, I'm just going to essentially say biggest is just going to be num1. Now, if num1 is not greater than num3, what happens in that case? So num1 is greater than num2. I know that for sure because otherwise we haven't gotten into this line. So if num1 is less than num3, then my biggest is just going to be num3. Because remember, if num3 is greater than num1, it definitely is greater than num2 anyways. Okay, so now else my biggest is just going to be num3. So this else belongs to this if. Okay, so, and this if is only going to execute if this if is true. And this is true if num1 is greater than num2. Okay, so now essentially we're done with this case. Okay, so if num1 is greater than num2, we're comparing num1 to num3, etc. Now let's look into the second case. what if num2 is greater than num1? Okay, so to do that, it's just going to be really kind of copy from the above. So if num2 is greater than, now for this one, I can actually make it like else num2 is greater than num1. Now in this case, if it's greater, I need to compare num2 with num3. And essentially, in that case, my biggest is just going to be num2. And what if num2 is not greater than num3? Okay, so, you know, what's going to happen in this case is num3 is going to be my biggest, just like what we did up here. So now, if not, kind of like we're done pretty much with these two scenarios. So comparing them as pairs, num1 with every other number, num2 with every other number. Now essentially else is just num3 is the biggest. So if, neither of these is true, then I'm just going to have else biggest. It's just going to be num3. And then this method is essentially going to return my biggest. Okay, so now that's our method. Let's actually now to test it out. Now, the way I like to test my methods is actually this way. If you look into this method in general to kind of like save time and be very efficient in testing, because testing sometimes could be really tricky, I'm just going to call this method 3 times. One time, I'm going to pass 3 arguments, num1, num2, and num3, making num1 to be the biggest. In my second call, I'm going to, make those arguments in, kind of in a way where num2 is my biggest. And then in the third call, I'm just going to actually make it in which num3 is the biggest. So let's actually define, like these methods. Now I can actually say, well, double max1 equal print double, etc. That's one way to do it, and then I'm going to actually print max1. But I actually like to do it a little differently. I'm just going to show you in just a second. So I'm just going to say 1.2, 0, 2.0, 3.0. So now the third argument is the biggest. And then I'll do s out max1. Let's see if that's actually going to work. So 3.0, which means actually it's working. Let's copy these and then test it one more time with max2. Now make this in the middle to be the biggest. So just kind of this way. So now actually we're not really printing this correctly. Oh, I'm sorry, we're printing max1 still. So let me just save and run. We're getting 12.0, so that is correct. And finally, let me do max3 and then make it as the first one to be the biggest. So let's say it's 111. I'm getting 111. So actually, it seems like it's working. Now, one last thing I want to do is what if I pass all these 3 to be equal? So 1.0, 1.0, 1.0. That's really important when you do something like that. So it's just going to be max 4 and then max 4. Let me run that. And actually I get 1.0, which is, seems like it's working. So hopefully that makes sense. Remember, in this case, I passed these numbers to be just kind of like static numbers, but they could come from anywhere. So these could actually come from the user. So rather than I'm defining the methods and I'm calling those methods on my own numbers, I can actually make the user pick some numbers or even randomly generated numbers, and my program would still really function. And you should be able to do that now by yourself. So you're going to define a scanner, and then something like that, and then essentially you take some number from the user, and essentially that number is going to be replacing whatever these numbers. Okay, So hope that makes sense, and I'm just gonna, like on ECN, I'll be posting some activity for you guys to work on concerning methods. Thank you guys. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.